Zigzag and One, a place where we honestly discuss how to navigate the zigs and zags in our crazy lives. Expect heartwarming stories, some laughter, and maybe a few tears as we embrace life's challenges and choose joy over a momentary defeat. Today, we will hear from someone whose life has had some unexpected turns, but chose to keep moving forward. What did they learn? Some valuable life lessons. Zigs and zags are also a part of our host, Melanie Brown's journey. She too had to find the determination to never give up. What are we waiting for? Let's dive in.
Thanks for joining me for today's episode of the Zigzag and One podcast. I'm your host, Melanie Brown. To bring awareness for Myasthenia Gravis Awareness Month, I invited my good friend Cheryl Lutz to join me today. In addition to having MG, a rare autoimmune disease which affects neuromuscular functions in the body, Cheryl is an author, speaker, and lay counselor. She and Alan have been married for 32 years and have 4 adult children. She has skydiving and an expedition to South Africa on her bucket list. Now that sounds fun. I'm excited for you to hear Cheryl's story and what she's learned about extending grace. So join my conversation with Cheryl Lutz. Today, I'm just going to jump in because this is take 2 of my interview with Cheryl Lutz, and we have quite a story to tell. The cat actually ate the interview. We saved it on a memory card. It is gone, and we have searched for it, and Cheryl has been gracious enough to redo this interview because the message that she shares is so important. So welcome again, Cheryl.
Hey, Mel. Hey, you know what? I get to spend another hour with you, so it's all good, right?
Absolutely. When we did the first interview, I'm just going to go through those things again, and then we're going to launch into our conversation about the zigzags that you have faced. I want the listeners to know that our meeting was totally a God thing, at least in my mind, because
Absolutely.
we met as a result of both of us signing up for the Christian Communicators Conference, knowing that we wanted to learn how to be better speakers. And so we rode together all the way to North Carolina, which gave us ample opportunity to get to know each other. And there probably wasn't 2 seconds of dead space during that conversation.
So true.
And the reason being is because we have so much in common. You have a chronic illness, I have a chronic illness, whereby they're different. We have a lot of similarities, and that's what bound us as we were talking, because we realized, hey, she gets it too, and she understands the struggles we go through, not necessarily on a daily basis, but frequently in how we have to navigate life as a result of that chronic illness. Let's jump in there. How old were you when you started having symptoms that then led to you being diagnosed with a chronic illness?
Yes, I was 33 years old. I had our 4th child at 32. And up until that point, I had just been the picture of health my whole life. And it started when our youngest was about 6 months old. I had turned 33 years old.
What were the symptoms you experienced that time, not knowing that it would lead to something that you would deal with for the rest of your life?
Yes, the drooping eyelid. And so much of the symptoms would start on my left side. My eyelid would droop for a few minutes, and it just seemed strange. You try not to think too much about it or read too much into it. And then be walking, and my left leg would get weak, start dragging. And the same with my left arm. And those were the subtle ways it started. Again, you just try and will it away. Think, oh, I don't know what that is. It's gone now. Just forget about that. But it progressed to the point where I realized, okay, I need to at least go to the primary care doctor and talk to him about some of these symptoms I'm having. And one of the big ones was fatigue. And so when you go and talk to a doctor about fatigue and you have 4 little children, they say, oh, duh, of course, but there was so much more to it. I knew there was something different going on in my body, and it was hard to communicate because I just had no idea what it was. And we didn't have Google at that time. So maybe that's a good thing that I couldn't.
Yeah, maybe it is a good thing.
There you go.
When we were in the car, one of the things that I remember asking you is, did you ever think that it was a stroke? Because the chronic illness that I have is neurologically related. I've had strokes. I've had many strokes, all again on my left side, as you have had on your left side. The weakness in my hands and my arms and my legs were definitely signals for me that they were strokes. Did you ever have that thought?
I did. And one of the times, the first time my husband took me to the emergency room one evening when I was having those weird symptoms, we were thinking that. And within an hour, of being there and some of the tests, I did start to feel better. When we mentioned stroke, it was like the doctor kind of laughed at me. So,
wow, that's not kind.
Yeah, right. I think they just see so much in the ER. They didn't know what, they weren't seeing anything coming up on the tests, the scans, the CAT scans normal, and my vitals were good. So in their mind, it was, maybe I needed some attention or something. But yeah, it was demoralizing to have that happen more than once. Not to be taken seriously and to be almost scoffed, like you're a bother.
So how long before you received your diagnosis? What all did you go through leading up to that?
It was probably a total of 8 months before I got the diagnosis the first time, which is another story. I got the diagnosis in Indiana, and when we moved to Georgia, we kind of started all over and began questioning the original diagnosis. But I went through a lot, and one of the stories I didn't really tell in our first podcast, I got eaten by the cat, when I went to Northwestern in Chicago and spent a couple nights and just had a barrage of tests. I was being wheeled down the hall in the wheelchair in my hospital gown and completely exhausted from staying up all night doing these various tests. And one of the neurologists just met me in the hall and just was very short with me and said, all your tests have come back normal. There's nothing organically wrong with you. You need to see a psychiatrist.
Oh, wow.
In the way in which it was done. And one of the reasons I believe that God allowed me to go through that is because I did have emotional issues and some anxiety, mental health anxiety and such that needed to be dealt with. But I also have an autoimmune disease. And the way they treated me and communicated that mental illness is real and it's nothing to be ashamed of, but they made me feel so ashamed the way they treated me, the way they went about it. And it's not right. I wasn't there. I can think of ways to get attention that are a lot less expensive and a lot less humiliating. So,
yes, indeed.
So just if you struggle with a mental health issue, I have an aspect of that. If you struggle with a physical issue, don't allow doctors or anyone else to put that shame on you. And turn away from that, because that's not from the Lord.
So as far as the diagnosis, they did eventually give you one after that 8 months. And what was the diagnosis?
Myasthenia gravis. It is a neuromuscular autoimmune.
And so what would be the diagnostic criteria that you met in order to get that? And what does it look like as far as day to day?
It's a tricky one. Some people, the antibodies show up on the blood work, some don't. It's a little tricky. The nerve stimulation tests, the day I ended up doing it at Northwestern, showed up. Now, subsequently, the nerve tests have shown it. At the time, they didn't. So it's tricky. But the day I got the diagnosis with a new neurologist, and he's actually one that from the beginning believed there was something going on, and he really worked hard to figure it out. It's called the Testalon test. It's a medication that is specific to MG. It's not one you can take regularly. It's only for diagnostic purposes. And it's called Tensalon. I think I pronounced it wrong just a second ago. But I was having the weakness, the shortness of breath, because it can affect your lungs, the different parts, any muscle group. And he injected me with the Tensalon, and within 10 minutes, I was breathing normal. My eye was not drooping. Could see very quickly how my body responded to the Tensalon, and that's when I got the diagnosis.
What is the prognosis for MG?
It varies, and it's actually a very good prognosis now. It would have been a death sentence, in years past when they didn't know more. But between immune suppressants, and then I do IVIG treatments, immunoglobulin antibodies put into my system monthly through IV, and that has helped me tremendously. And then there's a drug called Mestinon, which works specifically between the brain and the muscle group, and the Mestinon helps with that. It's like if you have a headache and you take an aspirin, and it improves the headache. That's what Mestinon. It's a short term. It's not it doesn't deal with the underlying issue.
It is a chronic illness that you will deal with
Yes.
for the rest of your life.
Yes, and there are periods. I have gone through periods of remission where it was fairly normal, almost no symptoms, even for 2 or 3 years. So it does wax and wane, but there's no cure. There's treatment, but no cure.
Right. So tell me about your years between your diagnosis and now, and then how the MG has impacted your life.
Between the diagnosis and now, yes, it's been 22 years, 23 years. It's so hard to believe. Just learning so much about, as talked about last time, grace that we need ourselves and for each other. And it wasn't until we moved where we are now up in Blue Ridge in North Georgia. It was actually a nurse practitioner. I was seeing her, and for some issues, we were discussing my autoimmune and someone else and their sickness, and the way we respond to stress and such. And she said, your body handles stress differently than someone with a healthy body. So I have to give myself grace and not compare myself to Sally Joe, who has this major stressor in her life and is able to just keep moving forward. I have to step back and let my body recover because it affects me differently. So I have to give myself grace, and encouraging others to give your friends and family grace who have a chronic health condition and their body is responding differently. So I'm learning about that, giving myself grace, giving others grace who struggle in a different way, doesn't realize we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Learning so much about invisible illness. I know, Mel, your illness is invisible too. I can't see what's going on in your brain.
Probably wouldn't want to, Cheryl.
There you go. So you can look so good on the outside or look just fine, but be feeling completely differently on the inside.
Yes, indeed.
And realizing that about yourself, realizing that about other people. Maybe they look good and they have this intense struggle with anxiety going on in their brain that we can't see. But maybe then it starts to come out in some of the things they say. So stepping back, giving each other grace, realizing there are root issues that we don't know about. And God has taught me so much about letting people in, letting people help me. I just wanted to deal with this on my own, just kind of hide. I didn't want to talk about it because if you talk about it, that makes it real. Then you have to deal with it.
Yes, it does.
but hiding it is not the way. That, again, that just brings a lot of shame, a lot of feeling that you're alone in this, that you're the only one that struggles this way, that nobody understands, and those things aren't true. But when we bring it into the light and start talking about it, that's what happened with Mel and I in the car. It's like we looked at each other and went, me too.
Yes.
And if you hadn't brought up your struggle and what you've been through with your Moya, I don't know that I would have brought it up what I was going through.
Well, and it has given us a connection because, as you said, the Me Too, and I understand you, but also the helping component was hard for me as well. And you and I both are helpers. And
Absolutely.
so that's exactly why we have such a struggle with someone else helping us. But someone pointed out to me years ago, and this has really stuck with me, as much as you want to help others, if they said, no, thank you, or I'm good, it would take that gift away from me giving to them. In the exact same way, when we allow others to help us, we are allowing them to give to us, to give a gift to us, to show love to us.
Yes.
And if we don't allow that, then we're taking that opportunity away from them.
That
has really struck me hard, in that I am not meant to do this alone. You're not meant to do this alone. We are called to be there for each other and bear one another's burdens.
Yes.
And that's been a beautiful thing about our friendship, is that I can be having a rough day. I can send you a text or even call you and say, hey, I need some encouragement. And it's not that you perceive that as needy. You know exactly what that means.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And it has been a beautiful thing to be able to pray for each other when we're having hard times, but also to encourage each other.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And that has been a blessing. And that, I do believe it's important. I have a lot of friends who are amazing friends who don't have an autoimmune. And that's a beautiful thing. They don't need to. And they can love me and come alongside me. But there is something about having someone in your life, it doesn't have to be autoimmune. Mel's is a chronic illness, who has a chronic illness. There's things we understand and can talk about. And as I said, look at each other and say, me too, I get it. And that's very important. Whatever your struggle, whatever your trial, have someone. If you're a widow, have another friend who's a widow that gets that in a way that I can't.
Because, that can relate.
Yes.
Because when I tell you I'm struggling with brain fog, or my fatigue is over the top, because those are things that you too struggle with, you can understand and relate and give me encouragement that's on a deeper level, in that you know what you would have needed to hear during those times that you've experienced it. And then you can share that with me, and vice versa.
Yes, exactly. And again, the giving grace, because I've had to give people grace. Like if I've said to them, someone who doesn't know what this type of fatigue is, oh, well, you need aerobic exercise, and they start giving you advice, and it's, and so I have to give them grace and say, okay, Lord, they're trying to help. They just don't understand. But someone with MG, if you are having a flare up, aerobic exercise is the worst thing you could do, because it weakens your muscles and it could send you into a crisis. So again, someone who I can say to Mel, I'm fatigued, or she knows exactly what I'm talking about. Again, that giving ourselves grace, it's embarrassing sometimes. You feel like you're 80 years old. You have to go take a nap in the afternoon, or to tell a friend, I'm sorry, I've got to go lie down, But give yourself grace and do what you need to do, and just keep moving forward.
Well, one of the examples that you and I talked about is how we could have some event in the morning. Maybe you met a friend for breakfast in the morning and did Bible study. And then that afternoon you crashed and burned, and whatever event you had that night, you have to cancel on.
Yes.
Um, that that is extremely frustrating
Mhm.
because you want to be out there doing, but you
Mhm.
also know you have absolutely no energy left,
Yes.
even though you've already napped, because the nap was not about being refreshed as much as
Mhm.
it was about not completely tipping over.
Yeah, there you go. Uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh.
And so I try to help people understand that, and sometimes they get it and sometimes they don't.
Mhm.
But we're not focusing on the negative here.
Right.
I certainly don't want to do that.
Mhm.
My intent and your intent is for us to help people understand what it feels like to have a chronic illness. Excuse me.
I know.
So you have faced numerous years of zigzags,
Mm.
but what I love about you is that you have desperately focused on keeping a positive mindset.
Mm.
How
Mm.
do you do that?
Yeah, and there are days that I don't. There are days when I pull the covers over my head and I think, I don't want to get up. I don't,
Of course.
I don't want to do this. But, but for the most part, excuse me, God has really given me that grace. Looking in the Word, there are friends who have just, at just the right time, shared a scripture with me that said, oh, yes, I can keep going because I can look at what is happening on the inside, the way I am growing, the way I'm growing in compassion for others, the way I can help others now because of the things that I have been through. These are positive ways, growing in our depth of love for one another.
Yes.
That these internal workings that are going on through the diagnosis. And also, it's not about comparison, but when I go to the neurologist, and in the office there's three people sitting there in wheelchairs, another one with braces on, and I think, wow, I have so much to be thankful for.
Yes.
I
Indeed.
do, I
That
do.
is something that has been extremely important in my walk over all of these years, is to focus on all that I do have to be grateful for, because
Mm.
when you slow down and you think about that, it far outweighs the struggles that we have.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. So, and it's again the whole grace thing. I'm speaking to a man or woman who happens to be listening right now, and you are struggling with a chronic health condition. You're not broken.
And that needs to be emphasized.
Yes, yes. You have been knit together by a beautiful creator, and there is a purpose in the way you have been created, the way your body has been created. And there's beauty there. And trying to see that as a positive thing. And I say to you, there are going to be so many, again, well-meaning friends and family that love you. They're going to have so many natural cures for you. And sometimes those things really help, whether it be diet or this supplement or that supplement. So many of those things didn't work for me, but I know others that they have. We don't know till we try. So absolutely, if you feel led to try something, but stay encouraged. If that doesn't work for you, that's okay. Smile sweetly, thank them for trying to help you, and just keep moving forward. You will have well-meaning friends. I had ones, send me books on faith healing. If I had enough faith, that it was God's will to heal my body. And sometimes God does. He's in the business of healing. He could touch me right now while we're talking
Yes.
and completely heal my body. Or he can say, keep walking this out for my glory,
Yes.
right how you are. It's about him and whatever he wants to do. And as Johnny Erickson taught, if someone out there doesn't know who that is, look her up. Johnny Erickson Tata.
She's amazing.
Yes, but she said, God permits what he hates to accomplish what he loves. And
Yes,
he is
that is beautiful.
yes, he's accomplishing beautiful things in my life, beautiful things in Mel's life. And whatever your thing is, he is accomplishing beautiful things in your life through it, not in spite of it, but through it.
Tell me something specific that you have learned about God through all of these years of having MG.
He is faithful. He loves me.
Yes.
The enemy, our mind starts saying, he doesn't love you. That's why this is happening. You've displeased him. That's why this is happening. It's not true. He loves me so much. And he is so faithful. And I know Mel can attest to this too, when you are at your lowest, thinking, I can't do this, he sends someone or he sends something in the scripture that just jumps out at you. And so I have learned just the love, the faithfulness, the tender care of my father that I do not believe I would have learned had I not had an autoimmune, a chronic illness.
The things that I've learned about God and about life through the zigzags that I have faced, I wouldn't change. I wouldn't.
No,
because those are so valuable to me in my walk in life and what I am able to do and share with others, that I wouldn't want those not to be a part of my life.
I completely agree. And I think of how before I had a chronic illness, I didn't get it when I saw them that day and they're supposed to come to Bible study that night that I'm teaching and, they didn't show up and I didn't understand, but they looked fine today, these different things.
Yes.
Now I have that compassion that I wouldn't have had if I hadn't experienced these things. So I can show that love and compassion to others. And right after I had gotten out of Northwestern Hospital, and I felt so defeated and so lost and so helpless, like there was not any hope for me because they say there's nothing wrong. So I'm just going to live this way with no help and no hope. And my friend shared, a verse from Job. He knows the way that I take. And when he has tried me, I will come forth as gold. And
beautiful.
He knew what was going on. And he was permitting it for a greater purpose. And I do feel so many ways I have received gold through MG. Yeah.
I totally get it. I totally get it. Well, it's time for us to wrap up. So I would love for you to share your one takeaway that the listeners can take away as they finish listening today, but also that they can take away and incorporate into their lives.
Yes. I just encourage the listeners, as we talked about, GRACE, grace. We just can't say it enough. Like when the nurse practitioner, she's not a neurologist, she's not a neuro-ophthalmologist. My precious nurse practitioner said, your body responds differently to stress than someone who doesn't have a chronic illness. I can give myself grace and I can give others grace. You, friends, if you don't have a chronic illness, you have something else. I know you do because you live in the fallen world, but the people in your life, that do, extend that grace, give the benefit of the doubt. They aren't there because they can't be there and they want to be there, but their body said no. And
that goes true for mental illness.
Yes.
It's true for a lot of things in life. It doesn't just have to be the chronic illness that you and I struggle with.
That's right.
And getting grace. All of us. And imagine what our world would be like if we all extended grace rather than offense.
Oh, yes.
And misunderstanding or anger. It would be an incredible world to live in.
Yes. It would just be showing the love of God if we could learn to do that step by step, one person at a time. Someone out there, you do that tomorrow and today.
Grace all around. Cheryl, thank you so much for doing this again, my friend.
Of course.
I love you, I am honored to be friends with you.
Well,
you have taught me so much.
Ditto, sister. And it's been an honor for you to allow me to come onto your program, to present me to your people. They're your audience and you're very protective of them. So thank you for allowing me to come into your program and speak.
If you are one of the 133 million Americans who suffer with a chronic illness, I hope Cheryl's message of giving yourself grace hit home for you. Well, it did for me. Check out Cheryl's ministry, Securely Held, at CherylLutz.com. CherylLutz.com. She has blog posts about resting securely in God's embrace that you really don't want to miss. Would you please share Cheryl's episode with your friends and help spread awareness about Myasthenia Gravis? And until next time, remember, when life zigs and zags, and you know it will, keep moving forward.